Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 271 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to get all of the copper coil setups done. Enjoy! And copper is one of those interesting things that has no alloy, because we can check our copper ingots on all the things that it goes into, and there's only a single recipe for making molten copper, and it just comes from ingots. So there's none of this. We will need this same setup up here though, but the logic will be much simpler because there will be none. And as long as the stations don't, strictly speaking, have to move, because it's not like they're really going to be that straight anyway because this isn't a straight setup, but we might as well leave them in place. Why move them if we don't have to? Because they're already not straight. Hey, look at that. The manganese is turned on now because it went above 30,000. And you can see how this logic works. It's where these machines are running. The belts for the manganese have turned on. And the inserters for the manganese have turned on, while the inserters for just making iron the normal way have turned off. And now these are endeavoring to fill the tank higher than the iron would have. And that's why the iron isn't running anymore. It's nice to know the logic is working. So if we go back here, we will see that now that our iron level has gone low enough, that we are not making it from the direct sorting because we have a higher priority for making it from here. And I noticed that the level is gone. So what don't we have to make this run? Is that the Givelite? Seems to be, because we tore that out. And we needed to rebuild it somewhere. I think we were deciding on this one because it was so close to this track right here that it would be really easy to just use it. Well, that's good to know. Unfortunately, the manganese is about to shut down again. But that's what the logic is for. So we don't have to micromanage it, that it will handle the dynamic conditions of the factory without us messing with it. We do actually have some tracks and signals, and I put them in their own storage chest. So they will be available, because we're not actually making them from anything right now. But grabbing some rails and perhaps some signals will make life a little easier. And I guess we'll just grab the train stop too. Okay, we wanted to do a mine here. So the train would be coming up like this somewhere, but we want to leave room for the actual station. Pretty sure I've got a blueprint for it. Hopefully it is still correct. It seems like it would be. I think we can mash this in a little closer. Like that. The rest of it will be on its way. Not sure why these are yellows though. Seems like we could be a lot faster. Although we did actually want to have an extra spot on there for the tank that will have the acid in it. So maybe we should pull an existing design here. That would look something like this. And it's not on the right side. I think this one will be. It does kind of take up a lot of space coming up like this, but oh well, there's nothing out here right now, so I think it'll work. Let's do quick few chain signals. I think that's pretty good. Doesn't have to be perfect, especially when we really don't have that many trains running. It's been a while since I've used yarn. It's still on. There's just not much to see, and looks like the Givelite mine is still on there, so we can get rid of it. And there it is, 4 million. It's not quite as big as that Crotinium seam there, but still sufficient. Well, because we've got 4 warehouses here, we might as well attempt to fill them up. I'm not sure how well that's going to work with what we've got here, but warehouse balancers solve all problems when it comes to doing anything perfectly balanced, so we'll just use them. It's a heck of a lot simpler than all these crazy balancer things you might want to do. And there they all go. I'm guessing speed modules, really. And, oops, it doesn't go all the way. Just gonna use module inserter for this. Because otherwise that's going to trash my inventory of modules. Well, never mind, I forgot that's how it was gonna work. Oh well. Well, the factory robots will come in here for the rest of this. And then we do need to get the acid in. To some of these, it looks like if we connect them right here, they'll both be connected. And right here as well. Juvelite load, there's only one of them. And now the train's coming. Wait, how long has this been a thing? When it tells you how many meters it has to go. I don't remember that, but maybe it's always been there. Also, it was 2 kilometers away. Is the factory this big? That's a long way, I feel. I feel like it would have been a lot closer in like a normal factory. Also, it got here a lot faster than you would expect. Because it's like a super train. But anyway, super train got here. And we don't have a pump. Is it not available? I guess not. Well, that's important. It's the whole reason why the train has an acid car on the end. I guess it'd be a little easier if we did that. It's though that it delivers the acid. Hoping this isn't quite connected. And there's also one more set over here. Waiting on mining fluid. Did I not put it there again? There we go. Well, we've got our solid belts, at least as long as the mine holds out. Well, good enough. Kind of want to take the train back for now. And deliver what we can. And I think some of this other stuff we're about to run out on. Can't exactly remember which one. This one, the train's just never been activated because we've had this nearby mine, so that one isn't a problem. Might have been stereotype, because that would have been this mine right here, so we're probably waiting on stereotype to run out before we have to replace that one as well. But all of the resources get delivered again. And then it all starts operating. So the factory has not been able to make the iron the way that we would have wanted it to, so it has had to go to less desirable methods, basically doing direct saphirite sorting rather than mixing it with the jivelite. Which is fine, as long as the ores don't get overloaded. It's the same amount of efficiency in the end. It's just been building us up on copper, but it hasn't run out, so it's been holding up until this point. And that's good to see. We are starting to make concrete again. And it's being put into this storage chest for robots to use if they need them. And look at that, we're finally starting to back up on crushed stone after being behind for so long. Because we're actually making resources again. Alright, and just like that, all of the jivelite methods are finally turning back on. But all of that's getting caught up again. That's making me feel really good that this bus was set up in such a way where you could run out of resources, but all hell did not break loose. That the factory just kept factoring on, and there weren't any issues. And that one's missing. Oh yeah, that's the ferrous mixtures, but they're coming in now. And we're making iron the efficient way again. So all of that seems to be operating just as we would expect. Fantastic. well, we've got a lot more ore types to make, but the one thing that the factory has been whining at us for the past quite a few episodes now is no copper. So let's get that hooked up so the whining will end. Since there's no other methods of making the copper, it's just this center part right here with no logic. But all of this up here needs to continue. So let's grab what we can, because this is probably going to get reused. So we don't need any of that. But a lot of this other stuff will probably stay pretty close to the way it is. Won't be exact, but it'll be close. And since this setup is the limiting factor, we probably want to attempt to mash it in here. Because at this point, I'm not too worried about space, because I really don't see this setup being expanded again, at least in scope, for the individual lines. Certainly it can be expanded this way to add more resource types, but I think this is going to be the last expansion of this before it gets completely rebuilt. So because of that, I don't terribly mind things being mashed in here. So even if this has to come in here a bit, if it saves us some space, it seems worth it, and I would rather them be lined up if possible. Unfortunately, these pipes don't quite line up, but I think that's just an element of this design. That if we just remove these pipes, and probably these as well, now we have something that we can just smash right in here. Not super close, because we do want to have some space, but let's make sure the wire will reach. And we'll do that. And I can already kind of tell, based on the position of this, that this train station could totally be squished in. Well, if we want to copy this, we will just need this part right here. And it needs to be lined up, and anywhere is fine. It's a little squished in to do it like this. The pipes would match better, but I think I'd rather space it out a bit. We do also need to move this, although the thing it's been whining about has actually been the wire coils, not the copper coils, which we have plenty of still. Which is kind of annoying, because that is a huge quantity of coils that we still have. Time to pick it up. Because it can be much closer. How much closer? It turns out quite a bit. Well, it doesn't really need to be super mashed in here, because the next station will be over here. But as it turns out, we could get pretty close to it being actually lined up if we put it here. So why not? We'll have to try to put all of these coils in here before we hook it up. Man, that is a lot of resources in there that they're trying to go through. And iron has stopped because it is filled up. So there's no more reason for any of it to run, and it's not filling this up all the way. Because the only method that'll do that is the nickel one, and it isn't running. We don't have a full supply of these, but I guess it's just trying to. So we definitely need even more. Let's switch this to copper. There are wires hooked up to these. We don't need them. So to avoid any confusion, we should probably just remove them. So I don't come back here later and be like, oh no, I messed it up. There's wires hooked up, but they don't go anywhere. Be like, no, no, no. Everything is fine. Then we can just kind of pick this thing up a little bit to better line it up with this setup. So many coils. Yeah, it's actually run out of power. It needs a boost. And I put those in manually because if I don't, it'll just burn it all away anyway and not use the solar panels at all. But it will use the solar panels for the bots if I only put that in there when it's actually low on charge. Well, it goes a lot faster when I just stand next to here and have my 40 bots just going. Like, it clears it out pretty fast. At least until my inventory gets trashed. And then it ends. Maybe it would help. I just saw a train fly by, so it was pretty dangerous driving over that track. But maybe it would help if I put this right there. We'll just do these belts up and down for now. We may want to put them in a different spot later, depending on how we want to mash things. Get more coolant. This can actually go straight into where it needs to. Switch to copper. Everything else is the same. Then we need to figure out how to get these belts in here. Well, it might look the most symmetrical if we have 4 coming straight up. There we go. Oh, didn't mean that quite to run yet, but that's got some zigzag in it. And this is in the way again. But those outputs can go there. Let's just grab some more of those filter frames. As many as we can hold. And keep throwing them in there as long as we need them. Alright, I think we've got everything hooked up here. There's no necessary logic because it's just straight in. So they're just going to max out quickly. Make sure this train station name is correct. I don't think we changed anything about it. Well, we didn't copy the train station name though, so we'll want to do that. Copper, coil, load. I don't think it really matters though, because the LTN will just handle it dynamically. Well, we have all of the copper coming up in here, but I'm wondering if we want to share this load between several different setups, because this one is just going to use all copper as well. I was thinking those other belts of copper would be for other applications. Basically all of the wire, which in itself does use a lot of copper. But for now, we'll see how it works by just having these 4 belts here. But yeah, now we're at the point where we can finally replace these copper coils and get copper in this, and then stop LTN's whining. And at least so far, these are actually being squished more tightly than they started, which is nice, I suppose. Well, to do copper coils is the same. There's nothing special about it, it's just copper that goes in there. So the beginning part will be this, and the end part will be this. In fact, it's basically the exact same thing, just a slightly different recipe. Otherwise, it's very close. So that's another water pipe we don't need anymore. So we'll slap another one in. And however close we can get it is what the spacing will be. So like that. And we'll copy this as well. Hopefully it will be a little straighter now. Should be. And we can even line that up. And we've got another train station to squish. And a bunch of coils to pick up. Well, if we put this just about here, it would be lined up. Not sure what we called it here. because this is silver coil load, but it's not silver plates. Interestingly, they both named the same thing, silver coil and silver coil, but they were different. Seems like LTN didn't care, which is convenient. So copper wire coil load, get that correct. And then these control wires need to be for the copper. That just makes sure that the train gets exactly what it requested. Doesn't have any remainders. And actually all of those will stay the same. And these can change to the coils. Missing material for construction. I would imagine we were making these. Yeah, it's just waiting around. Although it's possible that this is within the construction range and it's like monopolizing it, not letting the factory bots get to it. So if we put that over here, is it suddenly fixed? Yeah. Alright, well let's turn off logistics for a second. I guess turn them on so it puts it in our trash. Because then we need to come out here. And put them in where they need to go. Even more filter frames, and I'm guessing that we still need to put more in here. Oh yeah. And some things are still getting destroyed, but it's holding a lot better now that Beta Revolution's gone down. So that goes straight in. Bots are delivering the last little bits of speed modules. And here's some even more filter frames. We're eventually going to get that filled up. And now we need sorting storehouses in the proper locations. Another way that we can control the resources. Oh, the network doesn't quite reach there. Is by using the storage warehouses right here as logic in a similar way that we did it here, where we have all of these storehouses set to 1,000, and then their logic up here is controlled based on their status. Wasn't really relevant with iron because it only went into one thing. With copper though, it's starting to get to that point, because otherwise the resource priority will just be to the first things that run. So we kind of need to decide what kind of priority we want. So what do those copper ingots go into? Brass, solder, gunmetal, copper, and aluminum. So it's kind of a lot. And at this point, I kind of want to see if it would just work without doing this, because that's going to add significant complexity to something that's already kind of complicated. Because trains actually don't come in that often. They kind of burst, where they come in, they take a bunch of resources, and then they leave. It's not quite the same as this ore bus here that's kind of always on and always producing some amount of resources, so it needs a much more gentle hand when it comes to balancing the resources out. But as far as trains go, since they come through so rarely, it might work just fine, just leaving it the way it is. I mean, that's a lot of belts of resources we're going to have available anyway, so I think we'll be fine, but why make it more complicated if it doesn't have to be? So I believe all this is hooked up. We've got, well, almost. Yeah, for some reason, pipe still hasn't made it here. Is that actually a... Yeah, it's a ceramic pipe. So why haven't the bots made it here? Oh. Well, that explains it. In fact, a lot of this doesn't quite reach. Probably should connect all of this stuff if possible. Well, that's going to be a little while. That one last pipe, as it turns out, is pretty important. Because without coolant, nothing is going to happen. How's that Jivalite mine going, by the way? Looks like it balanced itself out just fine. Of course, these ran out of resources already, but otherwise, it seems like it balanced out. How much did that take of the mine? Only 3% to run that, so that wasn't too bad. Time for some copper wire coils. Once we get this hooked up. There we go. So how is the status of the mineral oil here? It's actually doing pretty good. I was kind of worried that hooking all these up would nuke the mineral oil and then we'd need to run all this fish in order to keep it up, but it's doing alright for now. Okay. 4 belts of copper. Making copper wire coils. It seems mostly hooked up. Soon this will be enough for a train to come by. And hopefully that means no more whining, finally. Not quite. Does it not have a quarter? I guess not. Because that point would be right around here. Kind of want to make sure that it actually runs. But how is everything else with copper going? Pretty good. It's all moving along. And because we had a surplus of it, not much is going to happen until it works through it all. I think it's so neat to see a setup like this that it doesn't run in real time, but rather it stores all of these different types of resources and then just uses them when it can and has logic to control it. It's interesting to think that, hey, we're making all this copper stuff, but we're not actually making any copper ore because we had it stored on hand from other processes from before this point. So that's neat how that works. Okay, we should be at the point where it'll actually make the train request soon. And it's circuit unload 1 that wants 57,000. So if we come up here, this one should be pretty low, and it is. So it never actually ran out. It's just been making requests ever since then. Of course, nowhere close to using all these fiberglass boards. That's going to take an extremely long time to get through. And there it goes. Nero. Finally. The long drought of copper cable coils, say that 5 times fast, is now over. Fantastic. Well, I'm happy so far with how these have ended up. Or it's a heck of a lot smaller, at least this part was, than before. And despite how complicated the top part was, they've actually been mashed in there a little tighter than they previously were. So that's cool. So when everything is said and done, it might actually be not quite out this far. And I am thinking we'll rebuild this to make it smaller just because we can. But so far so good. Now we need to work on the next resource. But that's gonna have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.